If I could go back in time and talk to my college self, these are the healthy habits and tips that I would tell her to try. Important context here, right after I graduated college and started working my full-time corporate job, I gained about 30 pounds and I really neglected my health and wellness. So I've spent the last year and a half losing that weight and transforming my health, and I learned so much along the way. So I want to do everything I can to help you avoid my mistakes. Or if you're in a similar situation and you want to take back control of your health, regardless of how old you are, I want to share everything that actually helped me to start looking and feeling my best, inside and out. First thing I would tell myself to do, it's a little bit of tough love, but stop being lazy and track your calories just for a week. This, of course, only applies for people who have a healthy relationship with food. I think I certainly could have slowed or significantly prevented a lot of that fat gain if I had just taken the time for a couple of days or a week to track my calories and get a sense of how much I was eating. I think a lot of the foods that I was eating on a regular basis and the quantities of those foods, I just didn't really have any idea how many calories I was consuming. I avoided tracking calories for a really long time. I think societally right now we are kind of against tracking calories, which I'm so glad that we are focusing more on protecting your mental health. But I think as long as you're able to track calories safely without becoming obsessive or letting it take over your life, for me, it was such a helpful tool for understanding how different foods can all fit into a healthy, balanced diet. And it really taught me to stop demonizing certain foods. And honestly, I really think I could have prevented gaining almost all of that weight if I had just taken the time to have that awareness. See, the foods that I was eating on a regular basis, how many calories those foods actually were. My second tip is that if you want to be lean, but also have foods that you love and enjoy your life, you have to be strategic. I used to think that certain foods were good or bad and that I couldn't eat things like a sweet iced coffee, or that was bad, or cake or cookies or things like that. I've learned that you really can enjoy anything in moderation, but you have to be a little bit honest with yourself about what moderation really means. So there are definitely a couple things in my diet that are a little bit higher in calorie and what a lot of people would call unhealthy, but I have made space for them by prioritizing them and then cutting or reducing elsewhere. For example, I have a very sweet white chocolate iced latte, sometimes multiple, every single day. Goldfish crackers are my favorite snack and I eat them almost every week, and I have since I was a little kid. And I also have some candy here and there. Like there's a box of C's candy in my fridge right now. I'm obsessed with candy and chocolate. I've learned it's a lot less about individual foods being healthy or unhealthy and a lot more about how you're able to balance it throughout an entire day. 5-minute workouts still count. Workouts do not have to be an hour. I used to think that if it wasn't like an hour-long, super sweaty, intense session, I may as well not even bother. And that actually really negatively impacted my fat loss, my physique, and just how I felt in my health overall. When I started to lower the bar and be more flexible with the length of my workouts, the time of day I was doing them, the types of workouts that I was doing, I was actually able to accumulate a lot more exercise across the entire week, which helped me both with my fitness and with my fat loss goals. The next habit, hitting your protein. I have realized the reason I was always hungry was because I wasn't having enough protein. Protein is so much more satiating than carbs or fats. I would tell my younger self, calculate your protein needs and then try to hit that or at least get close to it every day. Most people will need between 1.2 and 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Just take a second and calculate it right now. I swear it will change your life. Protein is also essential for lots of functions in our body, including building and maintaining muscle. It's just an added bonus that it does keep you fuller for longer. I wish it wasn't true, but waking up early is kind of life-changing. I spent so long making fun of the 5 a.m. club and that type of thing, thinking it was silly and that it didn't really matter. Then I tried it for a week and it kind of changed my life. So I'm not saying you have to, but if you haven't tried waking up earlier, give it a try. Just give it a try for a week and see what happens, because it was kind of life-changing for me and I don't quite understand why. On those days that I would wake up early, get a good night's sleep, I was just on it. I was hitting my health and fitness goals, my work goals, I was productive. It was just a great time. And I need to get back on it. I've fallen off a little bit, but anyway, if you want to have good gut health and a flat stomach, the key is fiber. There is so much snake oil out there when it comes to gut health, and it's become such like a popularized term right now. The science tells us that fiber is the most important thing. Probiotics are also important. That's something that you can consider supplementing. I personally do take a probiotic supplement, but really the easiest, cheapest thing that you can do is get enough fiber. And I certainly was neglecting fiber for most of my life until very recently. A good target for most people is 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories consumed. So it can be tough to hit at the beginning, but once you kind of find the higher fiber foods that you enjoy, whether it's chia seeds, popcorn, avocado, there's lots of random foods out there that are high in fiber. It does get easier, I promise. It's also really important in preventing colon cancer, which has been on the rise, unfortunately, with younger people in like Gen Z millennial age. The next habit is low intensity exercise. So I was definitely of the mindset that walking, hiking, Pilates, or anything low intensity like wasn't a real workout. When it comes to fat loss, it really does come down to a calories game, right? You need to be eating less calories than you're burning, and you can accomplish that in a variety of ways by usually modifying your nutrition, but also modifying your exercise. What I learned quickly during my fat loss journey was that these little ways that I could increase my daily activity by going on more walks, or like I mentioned, fitting in the little 10-minute workouts wherever I could. Across a full week, these little things can add up and make a huge difference. But I also started to learn and experience the different adaptations you can get from different types of exercise. Low intensity cardio is good for your cardiovascular systems, and high intensity interval training is really good for your VO2 max. Pilates is really great for muscular endurance. Weightlifting can be really good for hypertrophy, so building the size of your muscles, or strength and power. Each of these things are really important. And if you are able to dabble in all these different training styles, I think that's when you can really reach peak fitness where you're balanced. Like you can run, you can hike, you could be functional in the gym, you can lift weights, you're strong, you're powerful, you're agile. Like personally, that is my dream and my goal. And what I realized is that although certain people may be really passionate about a certain style of training, each one really does have their benefits and their place. And I personally love having a balanced training routine where you can dabble in lots of different areas. It also just keeps it really fun and interesting. My next tip is to call people you love. So after I graduated college, I moved out of state for the first time in my life. Moving away from friends and family is really tough. I always used to feel like if I was calling my friends or family, I would be bothering or interrupting them, but I promise you that is not true. And if you are like calling at a bad time, they just won't pick up. It's not a big deal. I wish that earlier on I had called more friends and family members back home, whether that was just while I was on a walk or driving in the car or while I was cooking breakfast or something. You could even multitask if you're really busy, but life is short and it's just so important to tell people you love that you love them and stay in touch even if you do move for a job or whatnot. My next tip is to buy more frozen produce. It's first of all a lot cheaper, second of all a little bit more nutritious, and third, it creates a lot less waste. My next habit is thinking walks. If you have a problem you need to solve, whether it's personal or a work problem or whatever it is, or you need a creative idea for something, I learned that there is a shared pathway with movement and creativity such that we often get our best ideas while moving. And I have certainly experienced this looking back, but I started to go on walks whenever I was facing a problem, and I feel like within just a couple of minutes of walking, I've suddenly solved the problem. Whereas if I was sitting at my desk at home, it could have taken me hours to figure out. Next time you have an issue, try a thinking walk. It really does work. Don't drink caffeine past noon. This really does depend on your bedtime, but if you're like most of us and you're going to bed anywhere between like 10 and midnight, I say most of us as if I know what time you're going to bed. If you're like me and you're going to bed between 10 and midnight, stopping caffeine 10 or 12 hours before bed ideally. If you can't do that, then even stopping 8 hours before or 6 hours before or as early as possible before going to bed is ideal. Caffeine stays in our bodies even in small amounts for a very long time because the half-life of caffeine is quite long. Cutting out that 3 or 4 p.m. coffee that helps get you through the end of the workday, while extremely difficult, is actually so incredible for your sleep and can be really transformative. So I personally try and stop my caffeine by like 1 or 2 p.m. Some days I do cheat, but for the most part, I feel like it has seriously improved my sleep. You're probably not drinking enough water. I certainly wasn't drinking enough water. Most US adults need about 80 ounces a day or more, depending on how active you are, if you live in a hot environment, if you're sweating a lot. Being properly hydrated can improve focus, athletic performance, improve our energy levels, and I've also found during fat loss it's especially helpful because it helps you to feel a little bit fuller and more satisfied at meal times. I find that a lot of the time when I'm having problems in my life, it can be solved by getting enough sleep and drinking enough water. So there you go. The next habit is eating the frog first thing in the morning. You may have heard this saying before, but essentially it just means doing the hardest or most annoying thing that you need to do first thing in the morning and getting it out of the way. I find it just really sets the tone for the day. It also makes sure that you're taking care of the most important thing at the time that you have the most energy, and it doesn't like hang over you all day. Also, fun fact, our hormone balance earlier in the day makes it such that we are primed to be able to overcome the friction we feel to perform a habit. That's why for a lot of people, if they don't work out in the morning, they find it really difficult to get that workout in because as the day goes on, our hormone profiles change to be a lot more chill and relaxed going into the evening. I often find it hard to motivate myself. Like around dinner time, I'm kind of cooked at that point. Just doing the hardest thing you need to do that day first thing in the morning, getting it out of the way. I just find it sets the tone. It's simple, but so effective. I would tell myself to start hybrid training. Trends change in health and fitness constantly, but your longevity isn't a trend. And in order to maximize your fitness, your health span, which is essentially just your lifespan, but with a healthy body, both are so important. Doing one or the other is still great, and doing any kind of exercise is fantastic, but ideally doing a blend of both in whatever way is going to work for you is how you're going to really look and feel your best, at least in my experience. I definitely went through phases where I would be super obsessed with running or cardio training or plyometrics, and then phases where I was only lifting. I just find that you sacrifice a lot when you only focus on one training style. I would tell myself to get better sleep because if you are not sleeping well, it is so hard to follow through on your goals, whether they're health and fitness focused, personal work, whatever it is. The biggest game changer for me was supplementing with magnesium L-threonate. It is a science supported sleep supplement. It is incredible. I will link the one I use down below in case you're interested interested, but feel free to hunt around and try and find the cheapest one because that's personally what I'm always doing. I would tell myself not to give up on my habits. I remember that I used to hear this saying that it takes 21 days to build a habit. So if after 3 weeks I wasn't able to build a new habit, I would just often give up. Unfortunately, that's not totally true. Although it is possible for a habit to be built that quickly, the research shows it can usually take anywhere from 7 to 250 days. But the good news is you can build any habit if you are persistent. The reason is that we have neural circuits in our brain, and the more that we repeat an action, the more developed that circuit becomes and the more automatic that habit becomes for us. If you're really struggling to build a good habit with going to the gym or eating healthy or drinking more water, going to bed earlier, whatever it is, I promise you, if you get enough reps in, it will become a habit. You just have to be persistent. I wish that I had known that back in the day because I used to feel so disappointed with myself and think it just wasn't in the cards for me if I wasn't able to build that habit within a couple of weeks. But if you give it time, I promise you will get there. The next habit is getting a couple of minutes of morning sunlight. Finding a way to see the sun for a couple of minutes early in the morning is so easy and so impactful. It's great for our sleep. It's great for our energy levels and focus during the day. It's 100% free. The next piece of advice I'd give myself is spend more time with friends. In college, I feel like you end up spending so much time with your friends. There's a huge shift when you graduate from college and you start working full time and how much time you're able to spend with your friends. Unfortunately, it gets a lot harder. Life gets a lot busier, but I wish that I had prioritized it a lot more right out of college. There's a lot of research that when we start to kind of like socially isolate ourselves, it becomes this cycle because the more isolated we are, the less interested we are in going out and seeing our friends, even though seeing our friends would make us feel so much better, and it kind of creates this vicious cycle. I just wish I'd spent a little bit more time on that because I think, yeah, it's just really easy to feel isolated and it can have a really negative impact on your health and your well-being. See your friends. Life is short. The next piece of advice, eat mindfully. Don't eat while doing other stuff, like working. I used to sit and work on my laptop working from home and just like eat snacks. I would finish a full bag of chips or crackers before I even knew what happened. One of the easiest changes that you can make if your goal is to lose fat or reduce your caloric intake is to just try and eat mindfully. So rather than watching TV, watching a movie, going on your phone, being present with everything that you're eating seriously makes such a difference. It's just really hard to know how much you're eating and to really enjoy when you're multitasking. I would tell myself that mental health is health. When life is busy and overwhelming, it's really easy to neglect the little things that make a big impact on how you feel. But whether it's spending 5 minutes meditating, journaling, reading, just doing something for yourself that makes you feel good, I just really wish I'd prioritized that more because it's really easy to fall out of those good habits and suddenly you're wondering like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, I'm so burnt out. What happened? When I looked back, it was a culmination of all of these little habits that slowly fell away, and I realized all of these habits put together were helping me to feel my best. I would encourage my younger self to schedule in a couple of minutes of something every single day just for myself. My final tip is something I'm certainly still working on and not perfect at, but it is to be present because life is so short. Life can be so busy and stressful, and it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day habits and routines. But I've been reminded recently of how short life really is and how important it is to be present in every single moment. I look back on myself from college and I was so focused on finding a job and my next steps and moving and post-grad life and how I was going to set that up that I didn't even take the time to enjoy a lot of my senior spring semester of college. And I wish I could go back and tell myself like, hey, this is your last semester of college. Like, make sure to look around and enjoy it. I can look back on so many periods of my life and think about how I was so focused on the future and feeling anxious about what was coming up that I wasn't able to just enjoy what I had. And now looking back, I just want to shake myself and be like, that was so fun, or that was so cool, or that was such a great experience. And you were so focused on everything else going on that you didn't even enjoy it. Life is short, and I think the more we can take a moment to look around, be present, and be grateful, it can just have such a huge impact and help us not to get so bogged down in the day-to-day and the stress and the busyness and all that. So I really hope these tips and habits were helpful and that maybe you can take a few things away from this video and start implementing them into your routine. If you have any advice for your younger self, I would love to hear, so please leave a comment and let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you'd like to see more from me, make sure to subscribe. I upload new videos every week, and I will see you next time.